We all remember growing up with Harry Potter. Some fans had even framed their entire personalities around this single franchise, calling themselves Potterheads. Remember those silly news stories? That some people actually tried to go to Hogwarts Express through King's Cross Station? So, imagine the excitement that news of a prequel could have brought among the fans. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned, and instead of being a massive hit like it was supposed to be, it became a massive failure. So what was the prequel all about, and why did it fail so miserably? Let's find out. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Introduction. The promise of a new wizarding. For all the Potterheads out there, announcement of a prequel in September 2013 brought a lot of excitement and anticipation. It almost felt like a chance for them to relive that childhood nostalgia. And yes, on paper, this promise for a prequel seemed irresistible. This prequel attempted to expand Harry Potter's fictional universe, centering around the narrative of Newt Scamander, a magizoologist carrying around a suitcase filled with magical creatures. The script for the first film was initially developed. It was named after a book which the young wizards of Hogwarts studied as a part of their curriculum, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. However, the script was written way before the Harry Potter series had ended. In 2001, the sole intention of raising money for comic relief, a British charity. The whole project began as a direct outgrowth of J.K. Rowling's world building. Warner Brothers asked whether Fantastic Beasts or Quidditch, through the ages, might be adapted, and Rowling, making her screenwriting debut, turned in a rough draft of the first screenplay in about 12 days. This script wasn't the most well-written one, but at least it showed the shape of the idea and launched the series into production. Finally, in 2014, a formal announcement was made for an upcoming trilogy. From a filmmaking angle, the series carried heavyweight pedigree, produced by David Heyman, directed by David Yates, who had steered the later Harry Potter film. This starred Eddie Redmayne as Newt, giving the franchise both continuity and a deliberate tonal shift, away from adolescent coming-of-age stories of adventure. The first movie was released in 2016, with a lot of effort being put into the set design at Leavesden Studios by Stuart Craig. This movie straightaway plunged the audience back to 1926, this time around in New York. That 1920s setting is a major part of the charm, but while all eyes were stuck on this first one, J.K. Rowling, the creator of the magical universe, was already planning ahead. She aspired for a 5-part arc, which is supposed to map from 1926 all the way to 1945, promising a sweep generational saga. Contrary to popular expectations, wasn't a straightforward prequel. It was more like an expansion of the Harry Potter universe by zooming out. Looking back, this lack of straightforwardness might exactly be the reason behind the prequel's undoing. But as for the positive, the prequel did introduce the fans to the political tension brewing under a magical society, the darker threats. Thankfully, at least some familiar faces in earlier lives, like Dumbledore. But these alone couldn't be the saving grace. What the fans expected to be a nostalgia trip became a whole new world, to which, unfortunately, the fans couldn't relate. Identity crisis. Two stories collide. Alright, it's time to be real now. The first film of the prequel, i.e. Fantastic Beasts, wasn't half bad. Newt seemed like a promising protagonist, all charming and awkward in a good way. His endless passion for magical creatures and the adventure they took him on also felt like an interesting story arc. Even Catherine Waterston as the ex-Auror Tina and Alison Sudol as the mind reader Queen became instant fan favorites. Personally, our favorite was Jacob. Soon enough, things started to get messy. Even the subplot of the first, following Credence and Graves, felt extremely divergent from the primary storyline of the film. It wasn't bad, it just felt like two different films forcefully merged into one. Moreover, fans were also under the impression that this would be a one-off adventure, which turned out to be something else entirely. The franchise began slow, morphing into a Dumbledore versus Grindelwald saga, burying everything that made the first movie shine. All that adorableness and the magic that the fans enjoyed about the first movies were lost in the later parts. The climax of the first Fantastic Beasts felt rushed too, almost seeming like the whole narrative was just an unimportant banter to set up Grindelwald, played by Johnny Depp as the big bad villain. Despite that, the first part did manage to achieve decent financial success. At least, majority of the Harry Potter fans had watched the movie, but we definitely could not say the same for the next one, Crimes of Grindelwald. According to the fans who did watch it, it's undoubtedly the worst movie of the entire Harry Potter franchise. It was evident that the plot itself didn't know what to do with the primary character. Don't get us wrong, the plot showcasing the conflict between Dumbledore and Grindelwald could have been extremely interesting, fans eating it up like hotcakes, but what the films promised was different from what they delivered. It even made these two larger-than-life characters take a back seat. So, on one hand, we had iconic characters like Dumbledore and Grindelwald who were overshadowed. On the other hand, ones overshadowing them, i.e. Newt and his gang, had no place in the storyline to begin with. In the first weekend of its release, the second entry of the series could only earn $62 million, much less than any other film of the Harry Potter franchise. Fans were, in fact, quite vocal about their dissatisfaction with the prequel. They explicitly said said that the movie had taken a wrong direction, where Newt had no place. They even called it overstuffed and confusing. So, to sum up why it was an identity crisis, Newt is gentle and whimsical. Dumbledore-Grindelwald drama is brooding and epic. Marrying the two ended up making each one feel half-baked. Escalating creative and structural issues. Let's be honest, Crimes of Grindelwald was meant to deepen the magical universe, but in many ways, it just overcomplicated things. The plot was convoluted, just too much for the fans to follow. We start off thinking we're here for Newt's charming beast-related adventure, then suddenly, juggling Credence's mysterious past, political maneuver, and the wizarding, Leta Lestrange's tragic backstory, Queenie's abrupt change of heart, Nagini's origin, and a whole lot of lore tweaks. That just ended up feeling like none of the plots had any breathing. You can say the prequel had layers. That's not always a good thing. In this case, it certainly wasn't. And speaking of the character, even though some characters were interesting, others were just baffling. Take Queenie, for example. First film, she's warm, loving, and fiercely loyal. Then, in the next one, she joins Grindelwald's side, with almost no real build-up. It's not that the twist couldn't work, it's that it wasn't earned. And then there's Creed, the big surprise that he's supposedly Dumbledore's brother had jaws dropped. Not out of excitement, disbelief. Spoiler, he's not, as revealed later. He is Albus Dumbledore's nephew. Nonetheless, Credence, being revealed as a Dumbledore, outright contradicts the previously established lore. See where we're going with this confusion? Retcons aren't automatically bad. Sometimes they can even enrich a story. But here they mostly cause headache. Gotham, showing up years before she's supposed to be born. Nagini, being reimagined as a tragic human woman, fated to become a snake. Dumbledore's family timeline being bent into an impossible shape. It doesn't feel like clever storytelling. No wonder Crimes of Grindelwald only sits at a dismal 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. With too many plots mashed together, it was inevitable that there would be a clash of tone. One moment we're in this whimsical, magical creature with Newt awkwardly wrangling adorable beasts. And the next, we're in a shadowy political rally with fascist undertones. Dark themes aren't the problem. Harry Potter had plenty of. But here the jumps are so abrupt they give you whiplash. So yeah, it's safe to say that Crimes of Grindelwald lost its magic. And for a franchise that was supposed to be the next great chapter in the wizarding world, that's the biggest crime of all. Controversy, skin, cast, and creator challenge. Now here's a fun fact. The franchise was carrying a lot of baggage of its own, even before it had started to struggle at the box office. No, we're not trying to make a pun about Newt's briefcase. There were numerous behind-the-scenes controversies, marked by arrests, court cases, and even public backlash. The most alarming of all of was the controversy revolving around Johnny Depp. When he was first cast as Gellert Grindelwald, reactions were mixed. Some fans loved the choice, others weren't sure. But things escalated fast. Depp became embroiled in a very public legal battle with his ex-wife, Amber Heard, involving allegations of domestic abuse from both sides. Now that the case is concluded and we have witnessed the entire proceeding, we know that Depp's allegations were true. However, back then, fandom split right down the middle. Petitions, boycotts, and heated debates online. Warner Brothers initially stood by him for the Crimes of Grindelwald. By the time the court cases intensified, they asked him to resign from the role for the third film. Mads Mikkelsen stepped in as the new Grindelwald, but the recasting only fueled more drama. Then there was Ezra Miller, that actor who played Credence Barebones. His character was already central to some of the major plot twists on screen. However, off-screen, Miller's behavior became a PR nightmare. Starting in 2020, they faced a string of allegations, from being caught on video appearing to choke a fan in Iceland, to multiple arrests in Hawaii for disorderly conduct, harassment, and even burglary charges later on. Every new headline made it harder for Warner Brothers to keep the focus on the movies themselves. Fans started questioning whether the studio would recast or write out Creed. But with production already in motion, Miller remained in the role. And to top it all off, there was J.K. Rowling herself, the creator of this wizarding world. While she'd always been loved by her fans, her public image shifted dramatically in that time. In 2020, Rowling made some unwarranted comments on transgender issues, which sparked widespread criticism. The audience accused her of promoting harmful rhetoric. Can you blame them though? This wasn't just a case of angry fans on the internet. Even actors like Eddie Redmayne, Emma Watson, and Daniel Radcliffe, all from the Wizarding World franchise, were very clear in their stance, chose to distance themselves from Rowling's statement. This was truly disheartening because for decades, the Harry Potter franchise had been a place of acceptance for the fans. So obviously, this created a massive rift. And here's the thing, controversy doesn't necessarily sink a franchise. Like it said, even negative publicity is still publicity. But in the case of Fantastic Beasts, the drama just made it worse. The result, instead of being a beloved expansion of the Wizard, Fantastic Beasts became a magnet for non-stop PR crises, declining reception, and box office performance. By the time the second Fantastic Beasts movie had come out, it was clear something wasn't quite sitting well with audiences anymore. First film performed quite well in 2016. Critics were actually positive, with a rating of 74% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fans were excited to be back in the Wizarding, and the box office reflected. It pulled in over $800 million worldwide, a strong start for a planned 5-movie saga. But when The Crimes of Grindelwald in 2018 came around, the cracks started to show. On Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 36% rating from the critics. This was a sharp drop from the more favorable that the first film would score. Audience reactions weren't any better either. Instead of being engaged with the story, most of them just pointed to the confusing story, an overload of character plot twists that felt more frustrating than exciting. The box office, unfortunately, reflected all. The second film only managed to earn around $654 million globally. Now, that's still a lot of money by most standards. For a Wizarding World franchise film, it was a noticeable step down. By the time The Secrets of Dumbledore arrived in 2022, the franchise's momentum had slowed even further. Critical reception improved slightly, and it got 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. But to be fair, that's still in mixed territory, and we won't exactly call it a good rating. So of course, it was not enough to repair fan enthusiasm. Audiences too seemed lukewarm. Box office numbers fell again, this time to roughly $407 million worldwide. That's barely half of what the first film made. What's interesting is that the decline wasn't just about the review, it was also about the growing disconnect between the films and the fan base. In short, the numbers painted a clear picture. Instead of building a stronger foundation with each installment, like it did with the Harry Potter film, Fantastic Beasts was losing altitude. Franchise stalled, indefinite pause, and uncertain future. After 3 films, what was originally hyped up to be a 5-movie saga, Fantastic Beasts, is now, parked. In an interview back in October 2023, director David Yates said the series had been parked and explained that they had already made the 3 movies they initially planned and even made the last movie through a pandemic, so it was high time for them to take a pause. Interesting, most of the cast and crew were unaware that the franchise was a 5-film plan. It was none other than Rowling, who had let it slip during an interview that it was a 5-part franchise. But even the filmmakers were surprised and caught off guard by the state. This kind of explains some of the franchise's uneven pacing and shifting tone. By early 2022, just days after The Secrets of Dumbledore hit theater, reports from Variety and other outlets said Warner Brothers wasn't actively working on the next 2 films. In fact, the script for Fantastic Beasts 4 hadn't even been started. To be honest, this shouldn't have come as a surprise, seeing that the last movie became the lowest grossing Wizarding World film so far. The cast hasn't exactly been hinting at a comeback either. Jude Law, our on-screen Dumbledore, told Variety that he's heard nothing on the horizon and suggested that with a big Harry Potter TV works, the studio's attention may have officially shifted elsewhere. Fans have picked up on the writing on the wall. We've started threads on Reddit about the franchise being officially canceled. So, is this a pause or the end? Officially, it's just a pause. But with the director, cast, and even the studio quietly moving on, with the focus now on new Harry Potter project, it feels like the project has been shut down. Is it good news or bad news? Honestly, that's hard to tell. The larger legacy, lesson, and missed opportunity. When the franchise was first announced, it felt like the start of something magical to the Potterheads. Most thought it could be a chance for them to explore the Wizarding World further, without necessarily bumping into Harry Potter's shadow. The first movie even somewhat delivered on that promise. Newt Scamander, wandering around 1920s New York, caring for strange and wonderful creatures. It was lighter, fresher, and honestly, kind of charming. It could have been so much more from that point onwards. But unfortunately, it wasn't. The moment that Newt wasn't the heart of the franchise anymore, it all started to fall out of place. Even the magical beats in the Magical Beasts franchise became side quests. Most like the movies had to toss them in, so the title still made sense. Too many characters, too many plot tone shifts that made you wonder if you were still watching the same series. And that's the thing. The franchise kept trying to blend 2 completely different tones, lighthearted magical zoology and heavy political drama, and ended up shortchanging both. It's a shame, because the world building was gorgeous. We got glimpses of incredible settings, Paris' magical under wizarding circuses, and hidden ministry, but we never really lived in. They were more like quick flashes and glimpses before we were pulled back to the same old drama in Hogwarts. At least the Harry Potter franchise has the magical, fascinating bits of Hogwarts show. This franchise didn't even have that. Some fans speculate that the whole concept might have worked better as a TV series. Imagine spending an episode with Newt tracking a mischievous beast in Morocco, or maybe a subplot about Grindelwald's ride, which would have been an ongoing theme in the background that concludes at the end of the series. That breathing room could have made all the difference. The franchise had heart, it had imagination, and it had Newt. But what it didn't have was enough trust to lead the way. So instead, it leaned too hard on the old formula and fell apart. Conclusion. Where does the Wizarding World go from here? To answer this question in a word, we'd say, no, it's paused, and most likely unofficially canceled. What the filmmakers are more focused on right now is the Harry Potter reboot, this time in the form of an HBO series. There's supposed to be a whole new cast, a new production book, and 7 seasons to faithfully adapt each book. Now, the original Harry Potter movies were iconic. They shaped an entire generation, so the bar is extremely high. However, so many seasons, the reboot might actually be more true to the book. Maybe it'll even show Ginny in a better light. Showrunner Francesca Gardner from Succession and his Dark Material is at the helm. Mark Millar is director. J.K. Rowling, David Heyman, Neil Blair, and Ruth Kinley-Letts are back as executive producers. There have even been talks about this series being one of the most expensive series ever. Some episodes are estimated to cost around $100 million. That means bringing more details to Hogwarts' magical world. We're sure fans won't mind. Weirdly, reactions are mixed. Some Some are quite enthusiastic about expanding the story, about taking a deeper dive into character, and exploring new corners of the wizard. There's also fatigue among fans, and a whole lot of skepticism, especially around Rowling's continued involvement. The Fantastic Beasts franchise not performing well was another, but if the Harry Potter reboot does not go as planned, it might taint the nostalgic memories of an entire generation. Marvelous verse. The failure of the Fantastic Beasts franchise teaches a lot. Being ambitious is good, but being overly ambitious, no clear direction, doesn't really get you anything, even when you have a huge success of a franchise to be your safe. The concept on paper was exciting, but the execution was as bad as it gets. The franchise could have become so much more if it had just learned to cut back and not overwhelm the audience with too many details. Prequels were The Hobbit, House of the Dragon, are all living proof of it. But in order for any prequel to work, it's important for it to stay true to its lore and not tweak it on a whim. Here's hoping the Harry Potter reboot doesn't fail to deliver on its promise. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.